In the chilling shadows of a Florida Christmas Eve festivity turned to despair. A bitter dispute between teen brothers over gifts escalated into a horrifying tragedy. A 14-year-old, consumed by the heat of the argument, unleashed a fatal shot upon his own sister, who courageously was trying to defuse the explosive situation. But the darkness deepened as the story unfolded, revealing that this harrowing night had yet another layer. A shocking twist involving the older brother. Brace yourselves for a tale of family discord that shattered the holiday spirit and left a community grappling with the unthinkable. So, on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2023, Abrielle Baldwin, her 10-month-old son, her 6-year-old son, her 14-year-old brother, Damarcus, her 15-year-old brother, Darcus, and their mother, Joyce, went Christmas shopping at a store in Largo. Where they were shopping, 15-year-old Darcus was jealous that their mother, Joyce, was getting 14-year-old Damarcus more gifts than he was receiving. So they had this family spat about who was getting what and what money was being spent on who. And they just had this big thing going on in the store. And they're all arguing with each other. They left the store and they headed to their grandmother's house, which is where the incident happened. So they all piled into one car and they're heading over to the grandmother's house because the grandmother was going to watch Bree's 6-year-old and 11-month-old baby while she went to work. So they get to the grandmother's house, and Darcus, who's the 15-year-old, he entered the home and went into the kitchen with the grandmother. Now, Damarcus, the 14-year-old, he stood in the doorway because, again, they're all arguing. They're having this huge spat about what happened while shopping and who's getting what and who didn't get what for Christmas. You know, he's mad at his brother about what his brother was getting. So he stood in the doorway and he took out his .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun and he pointed it at Darcus. And he told him he was going to shoot him in the head. So you've got the 14-year-old who's mad at the 15-year-old because mom's not buying equal amounts of gifts. Damarcus tries to get Darcus to fight. Darcus said he didn't want to fight, and he told him to get out of the house. And he didn't want anything to do with him now. One of the boys' uncles was also present in the home, and he separated them by moving Damarcus out of the house and into the driveway area. And so Damarcus left to go outside, and Darcus is still in the house in the kitchen. Damarcus was standing by a parked vehicle in the driveway when Abrielle told Damarcus, "You all need to leave that stuff alone while you're trying to start it if it's Christmas." And at that point, Abrielle was in the driveway. She was also carrying her 10-month-old baby in a carrier in her hand. Damarcus then began arguing with Abrielle and used some very, very derogatory language and profanity, calling her names and all kinds of other stuff, and stated that he was going to shoot her and that he was going to, quote, shoot the baby too. Damarcus then moved towards Abrielle and shot her in the chest with a .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun, again, while she's carrying the baby. Abrielle fell to the ground, so did the baby. The baby wasn't hurt because the baby was in a carrier. But when Darcus comes out of the house, and again, Darcus is the 15-year-old, he takes out his .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun because, again, you know, this is what kids do at Christmas, right? And they fight over gifts and they just bring out guns, of course. And so he takes out his gun and he tells Damarcus, quote, "You shot my sister." And then Darcus shot Damarcus one time in the stomach. So Damarcus falls to the ground. And when Darcus shot Damarcus was unarmed. There's about an 8-second gap between the time that Damarcus shot Bree and then Darcus comes out and shoots Damarcus. And when he shot him, he no longer had possession of the gun. Darcus, the 15-year-old, then ran and threw his gun in a nearby yard, fled to a relative's house up in Clearwater, where he was subsequently arrested. Unfortunately, though, Abrielle Baldwin was transported to Largo Medical Center Hospital in Largo, Florida, with a single gunshot wound to her chest. She was pronounced dead at the hospital. Well, basically, the round went in through her left arm, into her chest area, went into both lungs, and, you know, there's all kinds of internal bleeding. She bled out, and it popped both lungs, so she couldn't breathe. Damarcus was transported to a hospital, but where he underwent some surgery. He is in custody and he remains in the hospital in stable condition. But upon release, he's going to be transferred to the custody of the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. The Pascal State Attorney's Office is going to review the case and decide whether to charge Damarcus as an adult with the first-degree murder of his sister. Now, Darcus, again, the 15-year-old male, he had made some self-harm statements after he was picked up in the location in Clearwater. So he is now in a secure mental health facility, and he will be charged with attempted first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and then transported to the Juvenile Assessment Center upon his release from the mental health facility. Now, the .40 caliber handgun that Damarcus used to shoot his sister was recovered at the scene, but the .45 caliber handgun that Darcus used to shoot Damarcus has not been recovered because, again, when he ran, he tossed it in the backyard. And officers searched that area, but they couldn't find it. And the sheriff, he said the unfortunate reality is that gun is probably going to be used in the next crime because somebody will pick it up. The sheriff also said that they interviewed, all kinds of people, family members, young, old, everybody around, and that across the board, everybody really pretty much said that Damarcus and Darcus carried guns all the time. They routinely carried firearms on them, and people knew it. The sheriff also said that these young kids are getting those guns because they either buy them on the street very cheap, or they are stolen guns. They're stealing them from unlocked cars in the middle of the night doing car burglaries. And he also said that both Damarcus and Darcus were arrested for committing numerous car burglaries where they live back in May of this year. Damarcus, the 14-year-old, he has arrests dating back to when he was 12 years old. Think about this. He has arrests dating back to when he was 12. He's only 14 now. But 2 years ago, he was arrested for being a minor in possession of a gun, grand theft auto burglaries, disorderly conduct, battery on a school employee, and battery on a law enforcement officer. He's only 14 years old. Darcus was also arrested in May for committing numerous auto burglaries. Many of those cases are still pending, and the dispositions with Damarcus and Marcus previously is that, they get probation. And so really they get away with it. This is really just such a sad story. We have Abrielle, 23 years old. She's got 2 little kids. What's going to happen to those kids now? She was working at an assisted living facility and just a woman going about life, doing her thing with her 2 kids, trying to make a life for them. And all because her brothers were upset over who got what for Christmas, and she told him to knock it off and leave it alone. It was Christmas. Don't act that way. He puts a bullet in her. Now, the sheriff had the following to say about these instances.
A lot of the offenses that kids commit involving guns is that there's no mandate that they go into what is called in the juvenile system residential programs, which is really jail or prison, that they get sentenced to a period of time. You get these kids that are minors in possession of firearms. 14, 15-year-olds like this shouldn't have guns. 14, 15-year-olds with dad or grandpa going out hunting, that's fine, go for it. It's responsible, there's no issues with it. But 14, 15-year-olds carrying guns in their waistbands, walking around the neighborhood, just waiting for something to happen, no. And the problem is that today it's a misdemeanor. You're not going to get anything. And so they're doing it with impunity. The consequences aren't there. And this is where you end up with these kids, that it takes many, many, many times for them to score at the right level where there's consequences. So what I'm saying is that we need to change it. And we've got to provide some swift, harsh consequences up front to punish the conduct and to deter the misconduct of others. And have there be some skin in it. Make them realize that this is going to be unpleasant. And the message is, we're not going to put up with it. But unless the consequences are there, we can say we're not going to put up with it, but guess what? We as a society, we as a criminal judge, we are putting up with it. because we let him have these multiple bites at the apple. I went through what Damarcus's criminal history is. He's got all this stuff in the past, and he doesn't care. Obviously, he doesn't care, because if he cared, he wouldn't do it.
Carolina, this family is going through an extremely tough time right now after losing a 23-year-old mom of two just a day before Christmas. Hours ago, they honored her life about a mile from here with a candlelight vigil. That's where I spoke to her mom off camera. She tells me that she was there when the shooting happened and is just trying to process all of this. But tonight, this family wants Abrielle Baldwin to know that she is loved and her kids are taken care of. The pain is unbearable. Candles illuminate photos of 23-year-old Abrielle Baldwin and her two babies. They're now left without a mom.
They're going to get taken care of regardless.
Ariana Birch is Abrielle's younger sister.
She was a really sweet person. She was just special.
The 21-year-old comforted by the love Bree's family and friends are showing tonight, but she's heartbroken.
She didn't know people cared about her. She thought nobody didn't care about her.
She lost not one, but three siblings.
I feel like everything is destroyed and took it from me.
Pinellas County.